Good afternoon. This is the Transportation Benefit District for Thurston County. I'm Commissioner Bud Blake, and this is March 21st, 2017. So I'll call the meeting to order, and first item on our agenda is actually to nominate the President, Vice President, and Commissioner of this board. And then we'll get on with further as far as the approval of any of the minutes and what have you. So with that in mind, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Hutchings as the President of the Transportation Benefit District.
And I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded as stated. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. And I also would like to nominate Commissioner Edwards as the Vice President of the Transportation Benefit District Board.
I'll second that.
So it's been moved and seconded as stated. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So motion carries. And with that in mind, I'll turn it over to the President and Vice President to conduct the Transportation Benefit Board District.
Well, first I will, unless by default,
Yeah.
entertain a motion then for who will be the board, the chair. Not the chair, but the board member.
Oh, it's by default, but yeah.
It's by default. Do I have to do that officially? So do I hear a motion of nominating?
I'll move that should be Commissioner Blake.
I'll second that.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? No.
No, we
It
got that
carried.
taken care of.
Aye.
Good. Okay. We're on our way.
All right. I'll accept a motion to approve the March 21st, 2017 agenda.
I would so move to approve the March 21st, 2017 agenda.
And it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
No.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Move to accept the meeting minutes from July 19, 2016 and August 16, 2016.
No,
That's it. I'm just accepting them.
That's right. Okay, good.
And Ms. Campbell, would you like to address the board?
I have no comments at this time.
Okay. Anybody else want to address the board in the public comment section? No, seeing none. All right, we're going to move on. Department items.
We did that already.
If we did that, election of officers. Public Works. Is that Scott? We have Scott here?
It is.
There you go, Scott. Mr. Lindblom, thank you.
Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, Mr. Member.
Yeah, Mr. Member, yeah.
You've taken, actually addressed item number 3A on the agenda, which was the election of officers. And that leaves 4 remaining department items to go over with you today.
Okay.
The first of those is a resolution, excuse me, I should have brought my glasses. The first is a resolution changing the meeting times and location for the Transportation Benefit District. This is done through resolution.
Microphone?
Yeah.
We bring it down to you or closer to you?
No, it's not on. Underneath.
Is that better? Yep.
Oh, there we go.
Wonderful.
There you are. We
Would you like me
finally
to start
found
at the beginning again?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Okay. The first item on the agenda today is a resolution establishing the meeting time and location for future meetings of the TBD. Through resolution, if so approved, this would bring the Transportation Benefit District meetings to this building, Building 1, Room 280, the third Tuesday of each month, beginning at 3:30, or as soon thereafter as practical, for the transaction of any business purpose of the TBD. And that is the first item for your consideration.
Okay, any questions, comments?
No, I'm good.
No.
Make the motion.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I would move to approve the resolution adopting the meeting schedule for the Thurston County Transportation Board Benefit District.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to move to approve the resolution adopting the meeting schedule for the the Thurston County Transportation Benefit District. Any discussion? No?
No.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
Great, thank you. The next item on your agenda this afternoon is a resolution adopting a Thurston County Transportation Benefit District material change policy. This material change policy is required by state law, Thurston County Code, and the TC-TBD Charter. What it does is highlight that when a project that is approved and funded by the TBD changes or exceeds the approved budget amount by 20% or more, staff would need to come back to the TC-TBD for a public hearing. The TC-TBD would then solicit public comment on how to resolve the cost exceedance. Further, in addition to the cost, when there is a material change in the scope of a transportation project that changes from the originally anticipated project at the time of the annually adopted plan, staff would need to return to the TC-TBD board president to see how to resolve that issue. The president then would have the prerogative to hold a public hearing or address it within the TC-TBD business meetings. Thirdly, the material change to the schedule is also another one of the items on the material change policy. In the event that a schedule of a transportation project exceeds the schedule in a material way, again, staff would return to the TC-TBD board president to get their direction on how they'd like to proceed, whether it's soliciting public comment at a public hearing or at the regular board meeting. And finally, the fourth item, the district shall also issue an annual report which indicates the status of the transportation costs, the improvements, expenditures, revenues, schedules. This annual report would then be provided to newspapers of record in the district as well as available to the public.
Any questions?
Nope.
I got a question. The 20 percentile figure there, how did that come about?
That's in RCW. It's in
is it RCW driven?
RCW 3673160.
Statutory.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Anything else? I'll take a motion.
I would move to approve the resolution adopting the Thurston County Benefit District Material Change Policy for the Thurston County Transportation Benefit District.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the Thurston County Transportation Benefit District Material Change Policy. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
Yay.
Great, thank you.
Go ahead, 3D, is it?
Yes. So this item on your agenda today is the first annual TC-TBD annual report. And you will notice that it is for the year 2015. This was originally intended to be presented to the former TC-TBD board in late 2016. However, this is the first TC-TBD board meeting since, I believe, August of 2016. So this has been the next opportunity for us to present this to you. What this report does, first off, it's required by state law to provide you this information. And in review of 2015, I'm just going to highlight some of the accomplishments of 2015. First off, with staff, the TC-TBD executed an interlocal agreement between the TBD and Thurston County Public Works. Also, the TBD approved the bylaws, approved the charter, developed a framework for annual plan for services. And just to differentiate, that is not a plan for service. That's really just the framework for it. Also approved a communication and outreach plan. And finally, developed a website for the TBD. And the annual report is attached for your review. If you have questions or comments on this, we can certainly incorporate those into the 2016 annual report, which will be one of the next things we will be needing to do.
Okay. Any questions?
Do you happen to have that RCW, Scott, that you referred to?
For the 20% material
No,
change?
you said that this was required by RCW.
Yeah, it's actually in the same RCW as the material change policy. It's
Okay.
36. It's the one I just mentioned, 3673160.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Nope, that's going
Nope.
to do
I'll
it.
entertain
good.
a motion.
I move to accept the 2015 annual report and direct staff to post its availability in the newspaper of record for Thurston County.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the TC-TBD annual report. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
Alrighty.
3E.
3E, so the last item on your agenda, last department item on your agenda is a informational presentation to you No action will be requested. This is really just a presentation that will give you an overview of the TBD, its formation, its original purpose, some of the outreach that we did, and the status of where we left it in, I believe it was September last year. So with that, we'll start. So we'll touch briefly on the county road system, what it includes. It's more than just the roads you see. Talk a little bit about the road funding, where revenue for the road system comes from. Talk about the TC-TBD formation, the outreach that staff did, funding options available for the TBD, and next steps. The county road system we have includes more than 1,000 miles of roads. We have got 109 bridges. It also includes the guardrail, sidewalks, signals, signs, culverts, and streetlights. This supports today's population and will be needing to support the population that's expected to go to about 400,000 people in the next 25 years. So if we look at just a couple elements of that road system, for instance, the surfaces of our roads now, or the pavement condition. Right now, most of our road system is in good shape. We currently spend about $2 million each year for chip seal of our roads, and about $600,000 each year for pavement overlay. One important note that in 2016, we spent about $1.6 million as a kind of a one-time shot to overlay sections of Old 99, about 6 mile section of Old 99 that was in very, very poor shape. Looking into the future, in about 10 years out, if we don't change the level of funding, we expect to see the condition of our pavements to decline fairly dramatically. When we look at our road system, or excuse me, the bridges, as I mentioned, we have 109 bridges. 28 of these bridges now exceed the expected 50-year design life. 19 of those bridges are 19 of the 109 bridges are functionally obsolete. That does not mean that they are in danger of falling down by any stretch. What it means that the lane widths might be substandard, or they might have narrow shoulders, or it could include a bridge that doesn't have enough vertical clearance for large trucks to pass under, which could cause repeated hits and damage to the bridge. We have one bridge that is structurally deficient. If we look out in about 10 years, we'll have 39 of our bridges exceed the 50-year design life. In fact, our oldest bridge right now is on Old Highway 99. It was built in 1923. That same bridge carries about 7,000 vehicles per day and about 4 million to 10 million tons of freight each year. While we can plan for the deterioration of our bridges and roads and make some predictions on how they will fare, we can't always plan for emergencies. In just the last 3 years, we've had 4 slides that have impacted the county road system. Well, we've done 1 bridge replacement and 1 culvert replacement that will be replacing with a bridge this calendar year. So those are things that come up, and this past winter has been very wet. We've been fortunate there hasn't been a lot of damage to the roads, but we've had a lot of slides that have been very close to the roads. Chain Hill and Old Highway 99 last year were 2 of the slides that we experienced, as well as Prather Road and Little Rock Road Bridge back in 2014 was the bridge replacement we had. So the road system is supported by about $36 million per year in revenue. Most of the money for our M&O, maintenance and operations, comes from the road levy, the property tax, and the county's portion of the gas tax. Construction projects rely heavily on grant funds from both the federal and the state government. As you can imagine, grants are getting more and more competitive as other agencies are facing the exact same struggles we are. But we are quite efficient with our resources. Nearly 75% of our revenues that we get are expended directly on road maintenance, preservation, and construction activities. Only about 16% goes toward administrative expenses. With the revenue, we have seen an increase in revenue over the last 10 years. It's gone up about 16%. But at that same time, construction costs have gone up about 67%. So what that means for us, in 2005, the cost to chip seal a road was about $18,000. In 2015, chip sealing that same section of road would be about $41,000. Pavement overlays, we've seen the same approach. In 2005, the costs were about $120,000 per mile. And in 2016, we saw the cost at about $338,000 per mile. These cost increases certainly impact our ability to maintain and preserve our road network. So enter the TBD, or Transportation Benefit District. The TBD is a quasi-municipal corporation that is authorized as a independent taxing district. It's authorized by state law, and its primary purpose is to fund transportation system improvements. It can be used for any transportation project in a local, regional, or state transportation plan. Could range from roads and transit services to sidewalks and transportation demand management. Can also pay for construction, maintenance, and operation costs. To form a TBD, the first step is to hold a public hearing to see if there is public interest in the formation of the TBD. Once the ordinance, the establishing ordinance must also specify the boundaries of the district, which can include all or part of a city or county establishing the TBD. Once the boundaries are formed and the functions are developed, the TBD cannot be changed without further public hearings. Thurston County's TBD, while the TBD was actually formed in December 2014, long before that, the county sought participation from other agencies within the county. But there was not interest in the other agencies, and also did not meet the population thresholds. There is a requirement in the RCW that requires an interlocal agreement within the TBD and all the agencies that would participate. That ILA must be approved by the county, and 60% of the cities that represent 75% of the population of the cities within the county. At the time when those discussions were happening, the city of Olympia already had a TBD, so they were not interested in joining the county's TBD. With those population thresholds I mentioned, with the city of Olympia not participating in the TBD, we could not meet those population thresholds, which then drove the county, or led the county to really establishing a TBD for only the unincorporated part of the county. Since that time, both the city of Lacey and the city of Tumwater have established their own TBDs. The city of Lacey recently passed a sales tax in last month. City of Tumwater also passed a sales tax for revenue package for the city of Tumwater. Once the county's TC-TBD was formed, it's a mouthful. Once the county's TBD was formed, I'll just keep it at that. Staff made an initial proposal for a work plan. Again, as I go through some of these examples, the work plans and projects that were presented were really for examples only. The TBD has the final say on what projects, if any, are authorized. So the initial proposed work plan focused on pavement preservation, road safety, and technology. And I've got a guest here that's going to provide a short spiel on a high friction surface treatment presentation, kind of a Reader's Digest version, that President Hutchings saw at a TBD TRPC meeting recently. So I'll bring it to Scott Davis, Acting County Engineer.
I'm going to give you just a show and tell.
Thank you. You can shave with that thing.
Yeah, you might not want to, is this on?
It should be.
Yeah, it is. Okay, you might not want to shave with it, but anyways, so one of the initial intents, granted, we haven't put a work, there's not been a work plan or a funding program for the TBD, but part of the safety component was doing countywide safety work, and in part because the last 5 years.
Your mic is not on, Scott.
Oh, it's not on?
Well, we could hear you.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, you're kidding.
All right, I'll just over here.
So,
All right,
a
well,
presentation at TRPC on this, and it is amazing, and I'm sure we're going to hear where it's going to be applied in the county.
So yeah, this is the abbreviated version of and that was actually an abbreviated version too at Thurston Regional Planning Council a week or so ago. But anyway, the high friction surfacing is one of the things that we were considering as part of this it's part of the TBD if it ever moved forward. And what high friction surfacing is basically putting in, this is really the very unscientific definition of it, is putting tough rock and super glue on your road, and when you do that, you improve safety performance. And essentially what that does is when you feel it, it's like sandpaper basically. When you feel it, and so what it does is it grips those tires. So if you're going around a curve in wet weather, it keeps your car on the road if a driver is going at higher speeds and maybe what's best for conditions. It also allows cars to stop sooner, say approaching a stop sign or a traffic signal or another condition where they might need to stop sooner. And in part, what it really does is it's mitigating poor driver behavior in some cases. And one of the reasons why we're considering this as part of this, but also a program that we have funded through federal highways, is it's one of the few things that's considered a proven safety countermeasure. So, for example, in wet weather, where they've done this across the nation, they've the crash reduction or expected crash reduction is about 70% for wet weather conditions, which is pretty phenomenal. In all other conditions, it's about 40%, and there's not many things you can do to your roadway that get that kind of performance beside putting a roundabout in, which is really phenomenal for safety at intersection. And so, absent reconstructing a roadway, it's really an effective way to improve safety performance on your roadway. So, and what I talked about at Thurston Regional Planning Council was in end of December, Thurston County was awarded $2 million to put this material on 29 locations in Thurston County. And that should hopefully have a pretty good impact. All the locations were determined using, looking at crash data and developing a priority array that, or a subset of crash data that we'd expect to benefit from having a higher friction surfacing or higher friction texture on our roadway. So it's just in how you do it. If you're familiar with chip seals, it's very similar in terms of the chip seal. It's an aggregate, and it's an aggregate and an adhesive. In this case, the aggregate's a lot different than what you would normally use. It's a byproduct of the aluminum manufacturing process, and so when they when they go through the manufacturing process, it's very high temperature, and what it ends up doing with the aggregate you use here is it hardens it and changes the properties. So what you end up seeing is an aggregate. It actually holds its properties for a lot longer. So you can do it. You can put a chip seal on a roadway, or you can do other kinds of surfacing, and it won't hold that texture as long. But this stuff, it will, and it's at least as studies have indicated so far, it can hold its properties for a fairly long time, depending on the traffic conditions. If you put them on the highest volume roadway with a lot of truck traffic, it might not last as long. But most of the county roadways, we expect it to last longer than a chip seal or some similar type of treatment. And in doing that, not just seal the road up, but actually hold those safety properties as well. So anyway, that's that's everything in a nutshell, I think.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Firestone owns this company or what?
No, Firestone does not open it. The actual sample you got is from a company called Kiewit Bond Polymers, but no, the aggregate is made throughout the world. So no, there's no proprietary nature on the rock itself. Some of the adhesives that are used, those are proprietary in nature. So there's a handful of companies that make those.
That must eat up tires though at some point, doesn't it?
Yeah, one of the questions I got was from tires, I think, but also bicyclists. If they fall on it, if I was a bicyclist, I might not want to fall on it. But the thing about the thing about this material is when you're putting this material down, when you're talking chip seal, you're talking miles of roadway. When you're talking this stuff, you're talking square yards. And so even though certainly could potentially impact tire wear, it's in such small chunks on the roadway, it probably has fairly minimal impact, I guess. But for that one localized location where your tires need to grip the roadway better, it's going to provide that for you.
Phenomenal grippage.
Yeah.
Any other questions? And when it's applied, Scott, the highway is only shut down or impacted for about 2 hours, is it, 4 hours?
Yeah, it's it probably varies a little bit depending on the product, but the materials that the county maintenance crews used when we did a demonstration a few years ago was about roughly 2 hours just for the initial lane closure, and that's just for one lane. It takes some time for the adhesive to cure before you let traffic on it. So there's definitely an impact when you're doing construction, just like any kind of construction activity you might do in the roadway. But you just don't put it down and let folks go run around on it. So.
Thank you, Scott. Any other questions?
No.
Nope. Okay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Scott. Before we adjourn, I want to introduce our clerk of the board, Marcy Taylor. Thank you for being here, Marcy. Scott Lindblom, go ahead.
And I've got a few more slides to go through.
I thought so, but I thought we were
That
getting
was
it
just
cut
the,
short.
the brief hiatus.
Please, to continue.
Great. So I want to talk a little bit about how TBDs can obtain funding. should they so choose. There's two different ways a TBD could obtain funding. There's the councilmatic approach, which is TBD board approved or voter approved. Those actions that the TBD board could take would include a transportation impact fee for commercial and industrial properties only, a annual vehicle license fee or car tab. That's up to $20, which after 2 years could be raised to $40, which again could be raised to $50 should the board so choose after another 2-year period. There's also some voter-approved options, including a sales and use tax up to 0.2%. That is for a 10-year period and for specific projects. Also up to a $100 vehicle license fee. 1-year excess levy on the property tax, as well as vehicle
Could you
tolls.
clarify that? You said $20 earlier, and then you could bump
Yes.
it by 20 and up to 50, but you just said $100. What was that about?
With a public vote, it could go up to $100. I don't believe there's any jurisdictions in the state that have $100 vehicle license fees, but that's certainly the board's prerogative to take to the public.
Seattle doesn't have it, or King County doesn't have
I
it?
don't believe they have a $100 vehicle. I think there's a 60 the last I checked.
Okay.
And Olympia's 40 or 60?
There's just went up to $40
Just
in
up to
January.
40, okay.
So what I'd like to do, right after the county's TBD was formed in December 2014, the first meeting in January 2015, the then board asked staff to go out and do some outreach to the community to explain what the newly formed TBD is, what the funding options were, really why it was even under consideration for this work. So we reached out to the several Rotary groups, community groups, regional planning, transportation policy board, fire district, and Rochester Grand Mound Chamber. And in each of these, we laid out, again, the formation of the TBD, why it was formed, and the funding options that were available. And finally, we came back to the TBD board with a summary of that. So what I'd like to do now, and I'll run through it rather briefly as I know it's getting late. I'm going to just run through some hypothetical examples of what these different funding packages, should the board so choose to pursue any of them, what they could fund in real tangible means. So the first is an annual vehicle license fee of $20. Annually, it would generate about $1.8 million, and over 20 years, it would be $36 million. And in each of these, there's some examples of what it could fund. What this shows is over 20 years, the preservation could pay for preservation could include 50 to 60 miles of asphalt paving and prolong the life of those roads 10 to 15 years. Similarly, with safety and technology, it would add all those together. So it could include 350 miles of safety and performance, mile of guardrail, traffic calming. A few years ago, we stopped our traffic calming program. That's speed bumps and such in neighborhoods. Technology is not necessarily desktop computers. It's more updating traffic signals, enhancing pedestrian crossings, and LED streetlight conversion. If the $40 fee was enacted, really everything stays the same except for we would focus in this proposal the extra $20 on a bridge program, which would allow bridge replacements on the order of 15 to 20 bridges over the next 20 years. Impact fees would not generate as much, and it's also not applicable to county as we already have an existing system in place. A sales and use tax would generate slightly less than the $20 vehicle license fee. So what we did is we just decreased some of these, in this case the preservation a bit, to account for that loss in the potential revenue. Property tax, with a 1-year excess levy on the property tax, it would be a one-time shot generating about $2.8 million, which could pay for about 7 centerline miles of paving. The $100 vehicle license fee would generate about $9 million and really provide more pavement preservation, more safety improvements, update the number of bridges to about 40 to 50 over 20 years. But at this time, we are not staffed up to support a program of that size. Vehicle tolls, we didn't believe that was very practical for county roads. So finally, after the public outreach, the TBD board asked staff to come back with a proposed program focused on pavement preservation and bridges. So we did that, and with that, we identified some potential projects that could be funded should the board so choose. And again, these are potential projects to kind of give real-world examples of real projects in the community where the improvements could be made. With that information, we held a public hearing, the TBD board held a public hearing in August of last year with a proposal for $20 vehicle license fees, again, focusing on pavement preservation and bridges. We had 43 people testify in opposition, 4 calls and emails in support. And I'm just going to go through some of the common themes where it was illegal. Car tabs, $30 car tabs mean that, $30. But we went through with the then board and responded to each of these issues, and I can go over those at another time perhaps if you'd like. So finally with that, it's a lot of information to try to absorb in a short period of time. But either now or at a future date, I'd be very happy to entertain questions or come back with more information if you'd like.
Questions?
Yeah, that'll be in a future date though, for me.
Okay.
Okay.
None here, I'm good.
I just have one question. The 14% gas tax that we receive goes to roads. Does any of that,
We do get a portion of the state gas tax, yes, but
Yeah.
it's a relatively small portion. And I don't know if it's 14 cents. You know,
I think that was the.
it was in an earlier slide, 14% of gas tax
I think it was the 14% of the budget.
that goes to the
Oh.
roads. Keep going, right there. To the road system
Yeah.
funding.
that's 14% of the roads revenue comes from the county's portion of the gas tax. Yes, through the County Road Administration Board.
Okay. I have no other questions, no.
Right.
Nope.
Thank you.
Okay, before I move to or find a motion or entertain a motion to adjourn, is there anything further?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Scott. And County Manager Romero Chavez, anything?
Thank you, Commissioner. I believe there's a lot of information that needs to be shared, maybe at the next TBD meeting, which is next month. Maybe I can suggest the staff to come back with additional details and start giving some additional information as to what the program can do,
Okay.
if the TBD chooses to.
And this is bound to generate public input.
Right.
All right.
Just because it has been a topic that's been brought to our attention, maybe next month you could talk about if a TBD was to be dissolved, what would that look like or what it would take, the process?
Yeah, we can certainly.
Yeah, the pros and cons
Yeah,
of.
explore the
of-
pros and cons, and I believe a constituent has sent an email on those terms.
Yes,
And we need to circle back with the prosecuting attorney as to the content of that particular email. She has provided an initial perspective. But next month, we'll bring back that opinion, and also we'll bring back in terms of the options the commissioners will have, and either continue on with the mission of the TBD or perhaps dissolving it.
and I take it even though we're gonna adjourn, you're gonna stick around a little bit, Scott? This is pretty interesting stuff. I mean, it bore the TV audience
we-
to
we-
know what I'm
we-
referring to here.
We
but-
have an executive session soon after
Oh.
this board meeting.
Okay, another day we'll talk about this.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you, sir.
Thank
I'll
you.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would move that we adjourn the Thurston County Transportation Benefit District meeting today,
Okay.
the 21st of March,
There you go. Second.
27th.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. We're done.